Okay, welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. My name is Mangg. Yeah, Super Metroid, because it's just a game that I can always pick up and just play without thinking too much about it at this point. Yeah, because I haven't really been playing much just on my own in my free time this week. I've actually mostly been recording the AD&D Gold Box games from late 80s, early 90s. Really great series of CRPGs. So I've been going through them and recording them. And I'm about to start the 4th game in the series. So, been really fun. Right after I finished looking at the whole Might and Magic series, I wasn't done with classic CRPGs from slightly before my time. So, speaking of recordings, this week on this channel, we had Factorio, Warptorio. I wanted to really get that one uploaded and out of the way, to give some time before the DLC drops, which is in a few weeks now, October 21st. So that is on the horizon. That, I imagine, is going to be a big old Let's Play. So I'm trying not to play any Factorio until then, so I'm like fully amped up and not burnt out or anything. And then I think we're also going to be doing some of it on Two Brothers Play. I don't know if we'll go through the entire expansion, because frankly I have no idea how long that experience is going to be. I don't think anyone really knows that much about the expansion outside of like the handful of people they invited to play it. They invited a bunch of Factorio streamers and stuff. But yeah, most of it's just kind of unknown, and it's going to be exciting. Aside from that, I've been uploading... Ooh, what's it been? Total War. That's right, The Lost God. I definitely enjoyed recording that. And I say this at the end of that little series, but, if anyone wants to see more Total War and doesn't mind the fact that it might just abruptly end, I'm glad to just record some Immortal Empires once in a while and just play for a bit. We also have done some of it on Two Brothers Play. So, Lost God, not super lengthy. But I'm gonna be uploading Might and Magic for sure. That's coming up hot. Plenty of videos on the Might and Magic and Heroes of Might and Magic series. They're not full Let's Plays at all or anything like that. Even the few games that I did beat, I didn't record all of it. So there's like 1 or 2 videos pretty much for each game. But that's still quite a few videos. It's over 15 videos. And then for the Gold Box games, I am playing through and beating all of them, but I'm also not doing Let's Plays, because a lot of it is just kind of combat over and over. And it's fun enough. It's fun combat, but yeah, I would run out of things to say, so I'm just doing like 2 or 3 videos for each game in the series. What else? I think I still have some RimWorld sitting, waiting around to be uploaded. And then beyond that, I'm not super sure what I have. I don't have a tremendous backlog outside of that stuff. So we'll have to see. Big thing on the horizon is the Factorio DLC. Beyond that, I don't know. There's just so many games that I could do Let's Plays of. It's just thousands of games I could do Let's Plays of. So we'll just kind of have to play it by ear. Yeah, and that's basically it. Two Brothers Play. We did a little RimWorld last night. It was kind of a bitch to get set up. Both of our mod setups just like were completely broken, and Rimpy was broken, and we had to abandon Rimpy, and then yeah, it just took forever. And then while streaming, I came to the realization of why I don't enjoy RimWorld as much when I'm streaming it. And that's because there's just so much dead air. There's so much just kind of sitting there and watching it. And that happens a lot when I'm recording RimWorld as well. But the thing is, I'll record it for like an hour or two and then be like, okay, I think this is a good point where I can just go off and play on my own for 10 hours. And then come back and give my thoughts and talk about everything that happened. I think, like, most casual playthroughs of RimWorld are not really worth, like, recording or just, you know, showing in their entirety. Unless you're going to be doing, like, some full difficulty, 500% difficulty kind of thing, where every moment is just tense. Usually you either want to edit it down or just not do it. But there's RimWorld streamers, but I don't know. I imagine most of them are playing on some rather intense setups most of the time. There's just too much dead time in RimWorld. It's a fantastic game. I mean, I love RimWorld. But I would say I most enjoy it when I'm recording it in snippets or just playing on my own. And watching something on like a second monitor, because it's a pretty chill game most of the time. So yeah, we kind of came to that realization. So I think the original intention was to do RimWorld for a bit, but yeah, I would rather not, I guess. So at the end of the stream last night, we just switched over to Archipelago, of course, and we're gonna do that, and we're probably just gonna do Archipelago until the Factorio expansion. So that's what's going on there. Over on the Exploring series, I put out no SCP video. The video I was working on, Toontown, turned out to be, in the end, an hour and a half long. And I just was too burned out. I was working on Pontypool at the same time, and I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not pushing myself that much. Fuck it. And so I delayed it. I didn't want to separate it into two parts. I could have done that, but I didn't want to do it. So I said, fuck it, we'll just delay it a week. And I released Pontypool on Wednesday. Again, not really getting many views there. Still not quite sure what the issue is of why the views are so low for the horror videos. I can pretend it's a lot of reasons, but I feel like probably it's just... I thought it was going to be the same audience I had, but it seems that the SCP audience is not that interested, and I'm going to have to find a new audience. My family, like, they all love the horror videos. Like, Lego, he's never watched an SCP video ever, and he's like, well, when's the next horror video? When's the next horror video? And so, funnily enough, I feel like I thought I was appealing to horror fans, but really what I'm appealing to is non-horror fans, which is potentially a very big demographic. I just have to find it. And that means basically just keep making videos. So, we're heading into October now. Very exciting. My favorite time of year. My house is all decorated. I'm pumped. I'm primed. And, this week I start for the first time, working just full-time on horror videos, 1 a week for the whole month. We're really gonna see how that feels. You know, I basically have been doing them at like a week-long pace alongside my SCP stuff every other week, but it hasn't been like that strict of a schedule. I've been a little lackadaisical about it. I mean, I have released them on that every 2 week schedule for a bit, but yeah, now 1 a week on Monday every week. You know, that's serious business. That's a job now. So we'll see how it all goes. Views are obviously going to be down this month, and it's kind of a pivotal month. So it's a big decision, but I'm standing by it for now. And this week I will be working on a classic little horror movie. Not classic in the 50-year-old sense, but classic as far as I'm concerned. Session 9. Session 9 has a lot of the hallmarks of like a straight to DVD, straight to, I don't know. I don't want to say sci-fi or anything. Straight to DVD, I guess. It has a lot of hallmarks of a straight to DVD film. But it's good. It's very good. It's psychological. There's practically no gore in it. It's got a twist. It's got a great little plot. It's got great setting. Yeah, I love Session 9, so I'm looking forward to covering that. I didn't look at the ratings on IMDb. I don't know how popular of a film it is, how well known it is. But I'm looking forward to covering it. Any movie recommendations for the spooky season? I mean, I have 1,000 movie recommendations. I would say anything I cover a summary on, I definitely recommend also watching the movie. Because I feel bad for all my summaries about how much I'm leaving out. Beyond that, you know, it's kind of hard to say without knowing like what you're into or what you're looking for. Are you into kind of slasher movies? Do you like that? Or do you like psychological stuff? Do you like atmosphere? You know, do you like kind of campy or pulp sort of stuff? Or do you want like real intense, like this is gonna fuck up my life horror, you know? There's a lot of recommendations. There's a lot of horror movies out there. I mean, I can tell you my favorite horror movie is The Witch, but I know that that's not for everybody. Hereditary is a fantastic horror movie, but also not for everybody. It's can definitely be a little intense. Yeah, I mean, if you like sort of mockumentary stuff, The Bay is really good. If you want really like sort of October sort of Halloween feeling stuff while actually being a scary horror movie. The one that I'm covering at the end of the October, Hell House LLC, is a fantastic found footage one that has to do with a haunted house. Really good. Grave Encounters is another great found footage one. That's like a kind of a, not a spoof really, but it's clearly based on like ghost adventures, but in like they're trapped in an insane asylum. And similar to that, but from South Korea, is Gonjam, Haunted Asylum. Sort of a similar plot, but also really good. Yeah, I mean, I could rattle off horror movies all day. Yeah, so without knowing more about what the person likes or is interested in watching, just kind of, here's a list of 1,000 good horror movies. So anyways, session 9 will be this week. So that'll be the first one for the month. And then the follow-up, I believe, I don't know if it's 100% so it's set in stone, but I believe I'm going to do The Tunnel, which I think was like a crowd-funded Australian horror found footage slash a bit of mockumentary. I tend to watch it every year. So I guess that's what I'm kind of looking at right now, is stuff like that. And then the third one is going to be Dog Soldiers. Probably my most watched... Probably my most watched film of all time, really, except maybe, I don't know, The Goonies or Pitch Black, when I just used to put movies on loop for 24/7. And then finally, we're gonna end with Hell House LLC. I think it's ripe for Halloween. I could go way more Halloween with it and like do Trick or Treat, but I think that's pretty well known. You know, we'll save that for when I can just kind of spit out well-known movies and people will watch it. I want to introduce a lot of lesser-known stuff to people. So yeah, that's the plan for October. And then, you know, I said that if I have time, I'll also do a Lovecraft reading for Halloween. I know that when I say that, it always happens. Once I put it out in the ether like that, it happens. I can't help it. So, yeah, I don't know what it'll be. I am slowly but surely running out of Lovecraft stories to cover. That'll be a sad day when I'm just done. Then maybe I go back and start redoing some of the earlier ones that I could improve upon. But I mean, most of them I think are solid. Like, I wouldn't want to redo Shadow over Innsmouth or something. I felt like I did a pretty good job with that. I think Call Cthulhu is really the only one that I'd be like, probably could have made that sound a bit better. Better audio quality at the very least. Yeah, and that's the plan for Exploring series. Oh, well, tomorrow then is going to be Toontown. Which is an hour and a half long, and it's about a researcher that goes to essentially a cartoon universe with cartoon logic and physics and stuff, and it's basically one very lengthy nightmare. It's very trippy. I wouldn't say I'd put Toontown in my top 10 or anything like that, you know, it's a bit kind of long. I feel like it could be a lot shorter and still get the point across of, like, this is fucked up. I think it could be half as long and still be quite effective. Maybe, possibly even more effective. And at times when I'm doing this, it's like, I feel like authors are they're just writing long stuff. And I'm the only channel that's really ever going to cover this. But, yeah, I think actually, you know, the Volgan and I are in kind of a good position as far as each other are concerned. We don't overlap much. He covers a lot of the shorter stuff. I cover a lot of the longer stuff. And never the two shall meet. And I don't know why specifically he avoids the longer stuff. But I guess I don't... Well, I know why I avoid the shorter stuff. And that's because I don't tend to enjoy it as much. It's also just like... he puts out a video. You know, and his schedule is roughly the same as mine, but he'll put out a video that's like 12 minutes long, and that's it for the week. And it's like, I just would feel bad if I did it. Just, it seems... Because I know people wait. Yeah, I know people are waiting for that video release every Sunday night when I do it, you know? And it's like, I just picture their response when they click refresh or whatever, and there's a 12-minute Exploring Series video sitting there, and just, I don't know, I'd feel bad. So that's why I worked myself to death. No, not really. It's all good, and yeah, it's mostly because I like the longer stuff. So, the next SCP video at the start of November will be on Bear SCPs. That was originally going to be the last thing before October, but I delayed Toontown. So, Bears got bumped. Anyways, we did do a little Shadow Dark last night. We had the whole group for the first time in quite a while, so we had all 6 players, and I decided to run them through Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur, which I did solo on, I recorded a solo run of it prior, so I was familiar with it. I figured it was going to be fun enough, but I also figured that they needed a little bit more of a hook. You know, they don't like just going in for treasure. And I could have just sent them in and said, like, oh, the Scarlet Minotaur he's threatening the surrounding farmlands, and you gotta kill him. Go kill the Scarlet Minotaur. But I didn't really want to set them up for just death like that. I didn't think they'd really come up with that clever of a plan to, like, you know, disintegrate him or something. I figured they would just bumble around until they found him, and then they would fight him, and then it would be over, one way or another. So I decided to make it a little bit more interesting, and basically said that the Citadel has 4 wards around, you know, placed in various locations or in the Citadel, like in each corner of the Citadel. And those wards have been weakening over the centuries, so now the Minotaur is able to start slowly leaving the Citadel and start rampaging. And so the characters are hired to go in there and reinforce all the wards. So the magic user, the witch of the group, was taught the proper ritual to reinforce the wards. And it took, like, you know, 10 minutes. Once you find the ward, you have to stand there and chant the incantation for 10 minutes to repair it. And that was good enough, because now they don't have to kill the Minotaur, but they have a clear objective that kind of forces them to travel around the Citadel. So yeah, it was pretty slow going. They are exceedingly cautious going through a dungeon, just like jumping at every possible thing. You know, they don't really want to walk into any room that exists. You know, they're just super cautious most of the time. And then other times they're just ridiculously kind of dumb and just like, yeah, let's do this. And it's like, what are you've been so cautious. What are you doing? So to go room by room, you know, it would take a while. They were pretty slow. They met the Ettercap. They saw the Ettercap in the opening hall, in the opening room, and, you know, Lego immediately just shot an arrow at it. Which is, well, okay, it's not as good as what I did. What I did was a smarter plan to try and get the backstab bonus. And my plan also was a little flawed, and we could have alpha striked him down when I played. But yeah, there was no, like, whispering of, like, oh, there's a thing in there, let's kill him. He's in the corner, we all strike now, you know, or something like that, and they all get a shot off. Like, okay, that would be good. I mean, honestly, that would be better than what I did, really. But no, he just fired his arrow, and then it screeched and fled. And they decided not to follow it, which is smart. I mean, you avoid the ambush, so that's good enough. I also, if you recall, spiked the door shut so that nothing could come back from that direction while I explored the other way. They did not think to do that, but I also didn't punish them for it, so... They went into the room with the jars. They were very cautious. They, like, rolled a stone across the room to see if it, you know, triggered a trap or anything. And it didn't. And they just walked through. They didn't even look at the jars. They just moved on. And, you know, the jars explode if they're shaken or rattled or disturbed in a hefty way. And I had used them fairly early on to disintegrate the Scarlet Minotaur, but they did not even discover that. But, you know, that's fine. And then they found the big stone bowl room, and one of them did throw in a coin and got a luck token. But then he decidedly did not tell the others that, you know, he noticed anything different. The others, a couple of the others tried to be like, oh, well, I want a luck token, so I'm going to throw a coin in. It's like, well, that's pretty meta. If the other character did so and didn't say anything about anything that occurred in response, and was just like, huh, like, why would you also just throw a coin away for no reason? Eventually they went back to the room, and he did remark on, like, the good feeling that he got from throwing the coin in, like, unnoticeable sort of good feeling. Like, okay, fair enough. So then most of them threw coins in. Let's see, they went into the labyrinth, and they did end up finding I put a ward there, so they had to reinforce it for 10 minutes. But I had decided to try using the underclock system. At this point, and I don't know if I uploaded any videos where I used the underclock. I think I may have used that when I was doing Hole in the Oak, and I didn't upload that yet. But the underclock system is an alternative to just random encounter rolls every so often. Basically, it's like a timer slowly ticking down, not in real time, but every so often it ticks down, and the players are aware of it. And then once it goes below 0, a random encounter occurs. So they kind of know when a random encounter is nearing. So I decided to try that out, and I think it worked fairly well. They were aware that a random encounter was occurring, and I was pretty cognizant of, like, actually rolling for it, which I often fail, and it guarantees random encounters. That's the thing. With the normal system, you could go the entire 3-hour session and just never roll a 1 on your d6 to get a random encounter. This pretty much ensures that you're going to have at least one. And so it turned out that while they were doing the second ward, they got attacked by 4 skeletons. And man, they are just so bad with tactics. They're just, oh god. So they got attacked from 2 different angles in the labyrinth. So these skeletons shuffled out of the tight corridors, you know, from south and east of them. And so, like, basically all the frontline fighters just went towards one group. And then the other group of skeletons who were left unmolested, and they both just went for the witch, who was busy kind of working on the ward, you know. She was like halfway through working on the ward, so she didn't want to interrupt it. And so she just had to stand there as these skeletons beat the shit out of her. Because all the fighters just left, you know? It's like, oh my god. And it's like, yeah, I can kind of tell them this and inform them, and they can be cognizant of it afterwards, but that doesn't mean anything for the next time such a situation arises. You'd think it's always, oh, you live and learn, but you live. I don't know how much they learn. But anyways, they did live. They killed the skeletons. Finally, actually, and my mom was playing the priest. And like the third round of combat, second or third round of combat, I think it was the third. I was like, you know, you have turn undead, and it's like really good. It's a really good ability against undead. This is the first time they've encountered undead. And it's like, okay, I mean, she probably didn't really read it, and they'd never encountered undead, and she's not used to playing a priest, and so on and so forth. But then, like, 2 more rounds went by, and she still hadn't used it, and I'm like, you know, you could use turn undead. So I was just thinking about my playthrough of, or my time playing Might and Magic 2. At the start, there's a skeleton closet where you repeatedly fight 15 skeletons. And, like, the only way you can really do it reliably is with turn undead, because it's so good. It's like, oh, man. You really... You should probably use it. So she finally used it, and she sent the last couple skeletons packing. And all was well. They continued on... I guess I am going room by room here. They continued on, they were poking around, they eventually ended up finding one of the beastmen that was just like the panicky sort of nice beast man. And my sister then, you know, was very nice to him and was role-playing with him and blah blah blah, and all was well, and she gave him some beef jerky, and he led her into the beastman lair where they met their leader. But their leader wasn't really, he's not a nice guy. And they made no indication that they wanted to slay the Minotaur. They want to just repair the wards. And the wards aren't going to help the beastmen. And the party seemed to believe that, oh, well, you know, the beastmen must hate living here. They want to leave. And it's like, well, no, I mean, this is their home. And the leader here wants to be the king of the Citadel, so he wants the Minotaur dead. He doesn't want the Minotaur warded in to stay here. So basically, the Beastmen mostly just didn't want anything to do with them. So they left, but the nice Beastman went with them because they had asked him about the sigils, the strange symbols on the walls, and he said that he did know where one was, so I threw him a bone. And he led them to another one nearby, which was in the big statue room. So they spent 10 minutes. They fixed that one up. They went past that to, like, the cave. There's a cave back there with a bunch of shadows at the edges of their light. And if their light ever went out or they walked into the darkness, they would just get immediately destroyed by shadows. But they didn't. And, there's a pool of water there that's, like, really cloudy with blood. And there's a bunch of treasure at the bottom, but if anybody goes into it, they have to make constant con checks or, like, lose wisdom. No one wanted anything to do with water, the bloody water, so they just left. They missed... I mean, they really are bad at finding treasure. They don't take any risks that they don't have to. And so they tend to get very little XP in this system. And that's why it's more about just, like, winning the scenario, you know, for them. And so I could remove that and just say, well, you're here for treasure. But then they would just leave. Like, after an hour, they'd be like, well, this place is dangerous. Let's leave. Why are we here? That would be the question that would pop up every single session. Why are we here? Because they always need like a strong motive for their characters or for their players, and be like, for someone to say, well, we can't leave, otherwise this person's gonna die or this town's gonna be destroyed or blah. You know, they always need that. Adventure is never worth it for adventure's sake. So they went back into the statue room, and now they were like, they were interested kind of in the weapons that the statues were holding, but those are just bronze. They're part of the statue. The only thing that wasn't was the diadems on top with the pearls. They're like, oh, well, we want to get those. So my brother-in-law just stepped up and he grabbed one of the diadems. And then he got hit with a greatsword and practically died. I house ruled it that you could spend a luck token to make the DM reroll instead of letting yourself reroll a roll. So he did use a luck token to reroll, and he lived. And I'm like, okay. So now they know that these things are trapped. And touching the diadem causes the trap to go off, and they'll swing their weapon. Now, anybody, you'd think, seeing 3 identical traps and having set off the first one, would come up with some sort of clever solution to avoid the second and third traps. But no, my nephew just went forward and plucked the second and third ones off and basically just tanked the hits from the weapons. No clever thinking of any kind. It's just stupidity. Just stupidity. And it's better to be lucky than smart, I guess. I think they were getting a little exasperated at this point. Of like how big this place was. Because they try to map out these places, you know, but especially like when they went through the Beastmen lair and the labyrinth, you know, and it was just like, holy shit, where the fuck are we, you know? And I think at a certain point you kind of just have to start like kind of a second map. You just have to break apart the first one and just go to a separate area of the piece of paper and be like, okay, well, let's start mapping here where it makes sense again. And then if it ever reconnects, you know, you can reconnect it. But trying to make it all connected at once is often a little too rough. These places are confusing. So they went through into another room. They got another random encounter finally from the Underclock, which was against a bunch of Ettercaps. They managed to just kind of alpha strike them down, because I'm really not sure of how tough the encounter should be. I didn't really pull any punches for the most part. They rolled well when they needed to roll well, I suppose. And they ended up going into a couple of the hallways with the bull statues. The thing is, like, Shadowdark is a really generous system by default. Like, if you don't house rule anything, you play just the default rules of Shadowdark, it's pretty nice compared to, like, actual old-school D&D. For one, you don't die instantly at level 0, or at health of 0. That's huge. I mean, that alone is massive. In the olden times, if you hit 0, you're dead. Done and done. And then since then, you know, basically every D&D edition has gotten nicer about death, because people don't like to lose characters. So in Shadowdark, you know, once you hit 0, you're down, and then you roll a d4 and add your con modifier, and that's how much that's how many rounds you have until you actually die. But the other big thing is healing. Cure light wounds. fucking Cure Light Wounds from the priest. Even at level 10 or whatever, max level, this spell would be extremely useful. Because all the priest has to do is roll an 11 or higher with like their spellcasting check modifier, their wisdom modifier, stuff like that. All they have to do is get an 11 or higher, and this spell goes off and heals for 1d6. And that will instantly bring back someone that has died, that is at 0. And so you can really just be ridiculous with it. I mean, at one point, Lego's character got impaled by the Minotaur, and just impaled on his horns, and just tossed aside like a rag doll. And it's like, oh, well, you know, the priest just made her healing check again, so you're back. I mean, I could introduce this, you know, injuries, or I could... There might be like a mortal wound system where if you take so much damage, you're just dead. I don't know. But this is really a group that does not like to lose characters. They don't want to make new characters. They don't ever want to die. They just like to play. And so it's a little tricky for me because that seems so antithetical to this, to the concept of the game, you know, to just not ever die. But even just playing by default, by the rules, yeah, they can always just pop back up. And my mom has been playing the priest, and she has never failed a Cure Light Wounds check. Somehow. She's never lost her spell. And so she always has it and can always just bring them back from dead. And when you're at, you know, at low levels, at level 1, when you have like 4 HP, you're basically just constantly in like a binary state of full health or dead. And that's it. So you're at full health, something hits you, you go to 0 and you're down, and then the priest heals you and you're back at full until something else hits you. And it's just back and forth, back and forth, back. It is a little ridiculous. And I even have the house rule where if you fail the roll, it still goes off. The spell still happens, you just can't cast it again. But she never even needs that. She never fails. It's really funny. Hey, Smart J. Anyways, so, yeah, so they encountered a couple of the bull statue traps, and Lego, I think, did get hit by one of them, and I think he did go, no, maybe he didn't even go down from that. I think I rolled pretty low on the damage. I don't remember. He might have gone down. I think he went down like 3 times throughout the session, but it doesn't really matter, like I said. And they quickly realized that these were like mechanical bulls on a track. And again, the module doesn't really specify that. It's definitely unclear on what these things are. I just decided that they were mechanical on a track, and they slowly like go back. I could have made them go back much faster, which would have made it trickier for them. But yeah, I just did it, and then they immediately like hopped on the idea of just, oh, well, quickly move behind it and like use an iron spike to derail it. And I was like, okay. So I had my nephew roll a dex check to try and jam the iron spike in there without losing his fingers. And he did fine on the first one. But the second time they did it, he failed his roll, and I'm like, alright, fuck this. Your fingers are broken. They're all broken. I did some damage to him, which got healed, but I'm like, no, your fingers are still broken until you get some bed rest for a couple weeks or whatever. They gotta recover. And so I wouldn't let him use two-handed weapons until that got fixed up. And then Lego also wanted to pry out the emeralds that were in the foreheads of the bulls. And so he had to do a dex check to avoid breaking them. He did fine. And so they derailed both bull statues they encountered and got both emeralds. So they finally got some treasure. I gave them some XP. I also gave some XP for the diadems with the pearls that they got from the statues. So they were up to like 5 XP. Not too bad. And then, miraculously, I mean, the session was running a little long at this point. We were going to come to a close. I hadn't planned it to be a one-shot. But they actually ended up randomly navigating to the pillar room. The dreaded fucking pillar room that I ranted and raved about for like an hour during my solo playthrough. And I decided to put the last ward there. But I couldn't put the last ward before the pillars. Because otherwise they would just do the ward and go home and they wouldn't encounter the pillars. And I really wanted to see how some other group handled the pillars. So I wanted to make sure they dealt with it. And so I put it between the 3rd and the 4th pillars. On the wall. And I made a little change that if someone pulled out the sword on the other end of the hall, that would deactivate all the pillars' magic. So I gave them a chance, because otherwise it would basically be impossible unless you just destroyed the pillars or something. I couldn't think of a way to solve my own puzzle outside of, you know, pulling out the sword. But pulling out the sword is the objective of that puzzle normally. So I figured, you know, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. One way or another, they'll get to the sword and they'll do it. Los Piares. So they initially decided to send in the witch's familiar. She had a little cockroach familiar. And they thought, oh, well, the cockroach can just go in. They didn't know what the pillars did. They just didn't like the look of it because there was the corpse in the middle of the room. So they didn't like the look of the pillars. They decided to send in the cockroach in the hopes that the cockroach could perform the ritual to repair the ward. Because the witch's abilities, she can cast spells through her familiar. So they were hoping that that would work. I didn't even have to think about if it would work because I knew the cockroach would die instantly. And sure enough, as soon as it passed the first pillar, it burst into flame. That really put the fear of God in them, and they were like, oh my God, what is the solution here? That sent them scrambling. And so my sister ended up, I think, looking for traps on the pillars. Fuck. To see, you know, just what she could find of how they, like, are activated or something. And she rolled a crit, so I'm like, okay, I'll be pretty open about this. Okay, God, why am I trying to get this story out? Cockroach died for their sins? Yeah. Yeah, and there was, like, nothing in the text about, like, getting the cockroach back or anything. So it's just dead. It's gone. And so I told her basically that the pillars are magical, and with your experience of trap finding and all that, you reckon that there's really 2 ways of disabling the pillars' magic. One would be to destroy the pillars, which they had already been talking about. Lego was really pushing that plan. So destroy the pillars, or there's likely a mechanism on the other end of the hall that you can't see because it's in the dark, that will, once activated, remove the effect. So that encouraged them then to go gung-ho with the destroy the pillars plan. And their plan to destroy the pillars was to go get one of the bull statues that they had derailed and use it as a ram to ram into the pillars. There's a few problems with the plan, of course. One is that it's a massive 10-foot-tall bull statue that they have to squeeze through a 5-foot-wide hallway. The other is that there's really not a whole lot of room for the ramming speed in this hall. And then third, that I didn't really mention to them at all, was the noise that it would make. Okay, why am I It's hold the direction and tap the jump button. What am I doing? I don't even need to do this. So they all work together. They all put together strength checks, and they sounds like Lego. Yeah. So they all put together their strength checks. They managed to barely squeeze the thing through. They rolled exceptionally well. I mean, all things considered. Their strength rolls were all like 16s and 17s. And I'm like, all right, you squeeze it through, and then they rammed it, and they all rolled really well in the strength checks to get up to ramming speed. And I'm like, yeah, the pillar comes down with this big crashing, thunderous sound across the whole citadel. And I'm like, all right, that's triggering the Minotaur. Alright, fuck it. My brain's not in the right state of mind for that. Reminds me when we were playing an RPG with Lego and he said, I'm pretty good with puzzles, I can be quite clever, and he's pushing, just break it. It's so funny. Yeah, you know, he thinks himself as being quite clever. He sure does. To his credit, it wasn't the worst plan, as far as it wanting to break down the pillars. They just didn't really think through the noise that it would make. And so, of course, right after the pillar crashes down, they are approached from behind by the Scarlet Minotaur. And they get into a brawl. And I had made it pretty clear throughout the whole session, you know, through various comments and from, you know, the guy that hired them from the town and stuff, that, like, no one really can kill the Scarlet Minotaur. He's way too powerful. But they got into a fight and they didn't run. They stood their ground and just went for it. And the first thing the Minotaur did was just charge forward and gored Lego just through the chest for like 20 damage. It was insane. Tossing his body aside. But then my mom, on her turn, just walked over and used Cure Light Wounds, and he was back to full health, you know, just, okay. If I was gonna do mortal wounds where there's no recovery and you just took too much damage, that would be the time to do it. That's the highest damage I think we've seen in Shadow Dark so far. But yeah, I figured whatever. I thought they were all gonna die, to be honest, because the Minotaur has a 14 AC, he's got 34 HP, he swings his Great Axe twice with a +6 for D12 damage. Like, he is designed to just slaughter a group of level 1s. But, amazingly, they all rolled exceptionally well. One of them did go down from a Great Axe attack on the second round. And, but my mom then immediately went over and just healed them as well, back to right as rain. And, they all just kept rolling really well on their attacks and damage rolls. And it only took a few rounds, and they whittled them down. Like, none of them really missed. It was insane, to be honest. And that's how dice rolls can go. And I was like, yeah, he starts fleeing. He starts running from you, and they chased him down and shot him in the back of the head. And it killed him. None of us really expected it to happen after how much I had been hyping him up. I mean, he's the Scarlet Minotaur. He's a level 7 enemy. But, yeah. You know, there's 6 of them. I don't know if the adventure was balanced around 6 of them. Had there been 3 of them, they would not have won that fight. He would have hit the priest on, like, turn 2, and that would have been it. And so they decided, well, they didn't need the wards anymore because the Minotaur's dead, and that's where we ended. Victory. I didn't really expect it at all. I didn't expect them to ever kill the Minotaur. I don't know if I expected them to survive and find all the wards at all, but no, they were victorious, mostly through dumb luck, of course. So that was it. I planned it as a 2-shot, I thought, because it's a pretty big dungeon, and there's 6 of them, and they're pretty slow. But miraculously, they managed to do it in 1. So I think we're skipping next week, and then we're coming back, and I think we're still pretty sparse in attendance for a while. People are busy with various work things and stuff. But around Thanksgiving, I think at Thanksgiving, everyone frees up, and that's when I'll probably start the big kind of campaign. Pretty hyped for a family game night. Oh yeah, I mean, people should wish that their family game nights involved slaughtering a Scarlet Minotaur by shooting him in the back of the head with an arrow. And getting gored on his horns. Dumb luck is the true hero's way. Yeah, it's better to be lucky than smart, I suppose. I mean, to my credit, I killed the Minotaur in like 45 minutes when I started that adventure. But I also had all the information available, which does probably influence things. If I had just been playing it, I doubt I would have been quite as clever. I got in my copy of Shadow Rim, which is a whole massive conversion of Skyrim to Shadowdark. And it includes, like, every location from the game as, like, as a visitable location on a hex map of Skyrim. And so it's this big, just open-world campaign that you can throw your players into. I'd have to do more than that, than just a big hex map, and like, yeah, go explore. I'd have to come up with plot lines. But it seems really cool. And it includes, like, a whole custom, like, leveling system, kind of, based around the signs. So when you make a character, you pick what sign they're under. And it includes a whole new magic system, and new equipment, and new enemies, and stuff. It's really cool. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for a longer campaign to run. Because I know I have a couple players that are familiar with Skyrim and enjoy it quite a bit, so they'd probably get a kick out of that. Yeah, until then, it's just going to be a handful of more one-shots. Nothing wrong with some one-shots, though. Anyways, I think that'll about do it. So, more Total War this week, the rest of the Lost God, as well as Might and Magic. My look at the entire Might and Magic and most of the Heroes of Might and Magic series. Technically, every game titled Heroes of Might and Magic. Actually, that statement might not be true. There might be some other ones. You're gonna catch up on that Total War. You've been rewatching Cataclysm vids. Yeah, Cataclysm is one of the best games ever made. Some may say the best game ever made. No, Tetris is the best video game ever made, but Cataclysm's really good. So I'm always trying to think of new ideas for runs. So Total War, Might and Magic, some more Archipelago with Lego, and on the Exploring series, Toontown, an hour-and-a-half long video about a horrible, nightmarish cartoon world. And next week will be session 9. We'll see how my regulars react. Those that didn't read the posts or anything, we'll see how they react to seeing a non-SCP video on Monday. It's gotta be done. It's gotta be done. Am I gonna do another Cataclysm video playthrough anytime soon? Did I upload that one that I did? What the fuck was that run? What run? Oh, no, I didn't upload Root Beer Express. Yeah, so I did one. I did Root Beer Express, and I have to upload that. Where the goal is to fill my entire car's gas tank with homemade root beer. I gotta upload that. Okay, I'll do that after Total War. I'll upload that one. That was a fun little playthrough. And yeah, that playthrough is really just indicative of what Cataclysm is, I think. Make your own goal, make it as ridiculous as possible, and you can do it. You can absolutely do it. I like the Exploring series variety vids. Yeah, you know, it's always I'm always on the lookout for the next big series, I guess. I like SCP, but it seems that just not as many people do anymore. And I look at the Volgan's channel from time to time. He seems to be having very similar numbers. So, I don't know if he'll ever switch off of SCP in any way, but yeah, I'm certainly always looking. Sad to see the decline. Yeah, I mean, the wiki is still going pretty strong, as far as I understand. So there's still plenty of interest in SCP, I suppose, just not so much on the YouTube side of things anymore. But I'm sure it'll come back. I'm sure there'll be a new generation at some point of fans that rediscover stuff. And it's not like my videos are ever gonna go anywhere. That's a nice thing. It's like, it's not like I finish a video, I get paid for the first month, and then, well, that's it. It's always gonna be there, so I can't be too upset. Alright, well, yeah, so that's what's coming. And thank you, Raymond, for chatting with me. I always appreciate it. But my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg, and I'll see you fine folks next week.